Hello and welcome to this handover presentation for a 2020 Porsche Taycan. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to contact me or drop any comments in the comment section. Thank you very much. Starting with the outside of the car can be locked via the key by simply pressing the key unlock button. You'll notice that the door handles will pop up when the car is unlocked. We can unlock the front and rear tailgates via the key also by pressing and holding the front and then pressing and holding the rear. Rear tailgate being power tailgate. The front luggage compartment is open via moving this red lever across and then lifting the bonnet up like so. Underneath here you'll have your windscreen washer fluid, which is located under here. These separate compartments here, which you lift up via these holes here, will have your locking wheel nut key, towing eye and a first aid kit. You'll also have some tools under there as well, and you also here have your warning triangle. To close the bonnet, I recommend putting your arm on the badge and giving it a firm push, and that secures it closed correctly without damaging or denting the bonnet. Rear tailgate can be opened via the key or via this touch button here. Inside you'll find your bag with charging cables, which I'll run through separately, and underneath here, if you order the public charging cable, that is where that would sit. To close the rear tailgate, just press this button here and it will do that electronically for you. Also on the outside we have two charging port covers. On the driver's side we have just simply AC, and they will open and close with the central locking of the car. When the car is locked, they will not open. On the passenger side we've got direct charging, which is different in that we have these two additional ports at the bottom. This will enable us to have our super fast charging. If you have ordered the electric port cover, then you'll find that there'll be a very small blade here, which you would run your hand underneath, and that will electronically open it up. The car should come with a bag, which is this one here. Inside you'll notice there's a variety of cables, subject to how you specify the car, and you'll also find that you'll have this transformer, which is mobile charge and connect. That is effectively the brains of the charging. Subject to how you plan to charge the car will depend on which cables you will have. But in essence, coming out here, we currently have in the UK the 3-pin socket, which we will plug into a normal domestic supply. Then at the other end, this particular one is a 7.5 metre cable which will go directly into the car. If you have 16 or 32 amp at home, then you will find that this cable you'll need to change, and they can be changed on here, which I'll show you how to do, to give you a different supply. On the reverse of the mobile charger connect, there are two catches either end for us to be able to change the cables. This then will change the length of the cable that goes from the transformer into the car, and this one will change the cable which runs into the main power source, which on this occasion we have a normal domestic 3-pin socket. Inside the bag you'll find a very small tool which will undo one of these small keys here. As you can see, you just very simply unscrew these, lift this catch up, and that will allow you to release this and to change it with something different. Once we have it plugged into a power source, we can then plug the Type 2 connector into the front, on either side, push it in. When the power is connected, what will happen is that the transformer will start to communicate with both the power and the car, and then it will start to give you some information on both the mobile charger connect and within the car. When this is flashing white, the car is unlocked and you're able to remove the cable. When it is green, that signals that the car is being charged and this cannot be taken out. If the car is also locked, and you press the button to try and release it, it won't release. The car needs to be unlocked. Whilst it's green, it's charging and it will not be removed. It has to be white flashing for you to be able to remove it. The first time you use the Charger Connect, you'll find that there is a setup wizard, which will allow you to do things like connect to the Wi-Fi, choose your language, which country you're in. The main reason for this is so that the car can understand your charging timers, if you want to use timers within the car. This will also give you information on the charging output and how much charge is going to the car, which eventually this will start to display. It may take a little bit of time to start off with, and that will simply just be down to the car conditioning the batteries to be at the right temperature and the right conditions for power to be fed into the car to start storing power. As you can see, it's just done. On the inside of the car, we have this central display. At the moment, this is just focusing on the charging. Because the car is now connected to power, it's going to tell us what time the car will finish charging, which at the moment is 4:52. It tells us what the percentage and the range in mileage is. It also tells us down here how much charge we're putting in, or how many miles per minute we're putting in. As the power level increases, you will find that the charge will increase as well. We also have down here the ability for us to pre-cool or preheat the car. That can also be activated through the various timers. On the inside of the car, subject to which type of seat we have, you will have your seat operations down here. So this button will move the seat forwards and backwards. Here we have the central squad, which will move in and out as well. And in here we have various other settings, which will be for the adaptive seats, which you can just see moving very slightly. This one will operate the outer thighs, and this will operate the lumbar support. Here we can adjust the angle of the seat rest back here. And then here we have our lumbar support, which will do the upper, mid and lower part of our back. On the door arm, we have our settings for our seat memory. By having the ignition switched on, press set and install which position you want, which number you want to store for your own personal seats. You can have 3 different settings. We can unlock the car, and then on here we have our windows and we have our mirror adjustment. We will select which mirror we will adjust, and then we use the cursor accordingly. On here we can fold the mirrors, and we can control the windows in the rear, and also any rear climate control we can also turn off by switching the windows off as well. On the inside of the cockpit, we have our ignition switch. So instead of a key that we would put into the dashboard and switch the ignition on, we just simply press the button here. And providing the keys are in the car becomes alive. So we have quite a bit of information on the inside here, and some of it is used from the steering wheel here. So for example, each time we decide to turn the wheel on the steering wheel here, we can activate a different mode on this particular binnacle. We can have the navigation, we can have trip data, we can change that to sport chrono, we can then change the driving mode. This we can also do via the Sport Plus, the Sport Chrono dial, which is down here. So each time we turn it, we put it into a different mode. So Sport, Sport Plus, an individual setting, then background to normal, and then we have a range mode. If we turn it again, we can go down to media, and if we turn it again, it'll give us more general information on the car. To change which binnacle is displaying information, we would press this button here, and each time we do it, you can see that it will switch to binnacle information. And again, when we turn the dial, it will give us a different lot of info. So we have assistance systems on here. We then have traffic signs, We want traffic signs to be illuminated on here. G-force. The all-wheel drive system telling us how the power is being distributed and entire information. On the centre, at the moment, it is on effectively what would be the rev counter. On this, because it's electric, it's called a power meter. When we increase our speed, this will go blue. When we come off the accelerator or we touch the brake, this will go green, and that indicates that we're recuperating energy and putting braking or coasting back into the battery of the car. We can also have a map in the centre, or we can extend that a bit further and have the entire screen as a map. We can change the zoom, go 3D map. We can play with all sorts of different information on the display here. We can put it back to reduced. Generally, I prefer to have it on the power meter. It just helps to remind you that you're driving something that has increased in its acceleration and deceleration, but you can put it on however you want it. To the side, we have buttons for our lights. On this side, they're touch buttons. We can push them and it will do whatever we ask it to do. Most of the time I've been inclined to leave it on automatic. And then on this side, we have some more of our driving features. So up here we have a traction control, which we would leave on all the time. Pressing it will switch it off. On here we have our active suspension, or Porsche active suspension management, so that will make the suspension feel firmer and softer. And then here we have our air suspension. This is our home button, so by pressing that button or on the steering wheel, it will change the display to a preferred setting that we can select. We have volume for the audio and voice control. That will be for recuperation. And then we have telephone here, and then the buttons which I've just shown you. On the steering column, we have our indicators and main beam on this side. We have our cruise control down here, and we have our windscreen wiper on there. This is your central display for the main console. There is a huge amount of information on here, probably a bit too much to go into lots of detail on one video, so I may break these down into separate videos. You also have got videos on how to use various things on the My Porsche portal, which is also really useful to refer back to, and in the user manual or via the Good to Know app on your phone if you've downloaded it. That will also give you a variety of info. I'll just run through the main essence of this. You have on the right hand side here, you have your three main menus, okay. These are broken, or the home screen is broken into two different sections. So this one has the main functions. If you press it again, you'll see that you then have three further tiles which you can change. If you press My Configure on here, what it will do is it will allow you to change which information you have on here. So if you have preferred info that you'd like to quickly refer to, you can change that around. So if, for example, you wanted to have, let's just say, trip data, you can press and hold it, drag it over to here and let go. And then if we just confirm that, it will then change the information that we've got on here. Okay, and we can change these two tiles as well. So if, for example, we didn't want to have the radio on there, and we wanted to change that to, let's just say, charging, where's charge? We can put charge back in here. We can put it into the center, and then we press confirm, and then what we've got is a three different sort of setup on the tiles there. When we press that again, that'll put us back to the main menu here, which we can use our finger to scroll up and down. On the navigation, to input a navigation, you just simply press the magnifying glass and enter in your destination that you want to go to. Each time you pop a destination in, it will add the previous destinations in a row down here, which you can delete if you wanted to. To put a destination in, you just simply type in where it is that you want to go. You can use a postal code if you want to, or you can type it in a different way. It will start to make assumptions on where it thinks that you might want to go. So if we put in our address here, it'll bring it up, and if we just press it on there, it'll then bring
The
it up.
route is being calculated.
And there we can just press start, and then it will direct us where we want to go. Let's come out of there, and then we just press home again. Media, if we press that, it gives us different options. So we have radio, online radio, Apple Music, and Bluetooth if we have a phone connected. We then have a list of audio stations which we can select from, and then favourites. So if there are some that we prefer to listen to more than others, we can select those as well. And then we can have a play around with the way that the sound is coming through, so we can play around with the acoustics on the car as well. There's no phone paired at the moment, but if we wanted to pair a phone, it would then bring up our contacts to just make things easier for us. We can also do that via the steering wheel onto the main display, and we can also do that by the passenger display, which I'll show you in a moment. Settings, we can play with a lot in here. There's a lot of adaptability within the car, a lot of information in here. Probably too much to go into in great detail for what is sort of meant to be really a brief handover. Charging information on here. We can also here set up timers and profiles. So if we want to play around and make the car charge to a certain percentage on certain times, this is where we would do that. If we have got a contract with an energy provider, that means that we have cheaper electricity during the evening through the early hours, we can set the car up to charge from a certain time and to finish at a certain time. So we might decide that we want to have the car charging from 12 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning, because that's when it's cheaper for us. We can ask the car to do that. It's also recommended that we don't have the car charged to 100% all of the time. I've got it charged to almost 100% now because it's going to be going out with a client, and I'd like it to be fully charged for them. Day to day, it's recommended that you generally don't exceed 80 to 85%. The reason for that is that helps to reduce battery degradation. When it's constantly bouncing off 100%, that can increase the degradation of the battery and just shorten the life of it. So day to day, if you don't need to do long journeys, keep it between 20 and 85% is recommended. We can set up profiles, so if we want to have 3 different types of profile, where we might want it to charge to 100%, if we've got a long journey coming up, we can select one profile to do that. If we want to have one profile that charges it to 85%, maybe once or twice a week, then we can set it up like that. We can also set up pre-cooling and preheating as well. So if we want to have a desired temperature, we can set the temperature for a certain time. So if, for example, we're leaving in the middle of winter at 7 o'clock in the morning and we want the car to be nice and warm, we can set a profile up so that when you get in at 7 o'clock, the car is already nice and warm. It's preconditioned with the right level of charge you want, so that you can crack on without having to worry too much about it. Climate control setting here. So again, we can play around with the way that the air is distributed. Eco will produce climate control in a slightly more economic way, to sort of help give us the longest range we can. We have also got on here a list on devices. So if we have a number of devices paired, we can select which device we want to use. If there might be sort of 2 of us in the car, and doesn't know which phone to connect to, we can ask it to do that as well. If we have any service requirements, the car will tell us here. At the moment, we don't have any to worry about immediately. If the car needs updating, we can also find out here. As we can see, the system is up to date on this one. We can also select news, where and how we get our news from. We can also pair up a calendar, so that might be via our phone, for example. We then have a manual for the car, as well as the manual that is provided with the car. And then we have information on the weather. Now, a lot of this stuff is set up via your My Porsche portal. I think it's under navigation and infotainment, which is free for the first 2 years of the car's life. And we can just simply have a look to load the data for where we are. So that's really handy. And then that's just a bit of legal info in here as well. When it eventually loads. So we also have got a console slightly lower down from here, which is down here. We can control some of the stuff that goes on up top by pressing up here. So when we press that, it will then automatically bring up navigation. If we press on the music, it will do that as well. And then telephone, and then we have settings as well. So these are effectively quick reference keys. We have the buttons for our heated seats on here, and then we also have our climate control setting on here. You'll notice it says sync. What it will mean is that you can operate on one side for the whole car. If we unclick it, then passenger and driver can have different temperatures. You can either swipe up or down, or you can just press the arrow if you want to. With the speed, again, we can sort of swipe our finger up, or we can increase the flow just by using the arrows. And then if we press sync, it will put it back to the main temperature again. We can also open and close the front and rear luggage compartments via this button here, and then we can also have a look at the charging data on here as well. This will be the volume, and this will be for us to be able to have a look and see what's going on the park assistance on the car. We can also switch the system off via this button. Also on your central display, we have a section here for your driving settings. So we have our drive mode, which can also be amended via the Sport Chrono dial on the steering wheel. So we can change that to normal, Sport and Sport Plus, along with the chassis settings and the suspension settings. We also have down here our recuperation section, and this is connected to this button on the steering wheel here. When we push this button, you may not have said it a short while ago, it will bring up a different level of energy recuperation. If we press and hold it, it will then give us automatic, and it changes down here as well. What that will do is it will change the way that the car uses regenerative braking. So when the car coasts and brakes, it will put more power into the battery. It will make the car feel, when you come off the accelerator, like it's braking more, and using what would have otherwise been effectively engine braking on a normal internal combustion engine car. It replicates the same sort of thing. In no way, however, should you use that instead of proper normal braking. Now, 95% of the braking that's done on a Taycan will also be regenerative, so it will be putting power back into the battery, but there is some mechanical braking involved when it's more severe. So you shouldn't use that as a form of braking. You should still use your brake pedal to do that and anticipate your braking distances appropriately. We can play around with our assistance. We can change the warning and brake assist if we want to. We've also got some information on the trip data here. And then we've got a section on sort of comfort levels, so we can change the ambient lighting. So just to whether or not we can change the colour if we want to, which is quite nice. And we have comfort entry as well, so that would mean that the steering wheel seat adjust when you get in and out of the car. The last button down here will just give us some notifications. So if, for example, we had either a low amount of energy, or we had a slow puncture, or there was another message that the car wanted to notify the driver of, it would also appear in here. On the passenger display, this is an option which isn't on every Taycan, but if it's a feature that your car has, it's a separate screen which sits directly in front of the passenger. Most of the information that is contained on here is contained on the main screen here as well. You will notice, however, there's a couple of less icons on here, and that will be for things like service and updates. There's no need to have those on there. And you have got an additional one which is for cockpit. which when you press, it will give you a different lot of data, so you can have a look and see what's going on without having to ask or reach across or look. And by pressing that, it puts us back onto here as well. We've also got some tiles as well, which again we can configure if we want to. The idea here is that if the passenger wanted to assist the driver in routes, for example, it's something that they can help along with, or make phone calls if they needed to, change the audio station just in a slightly safer manner. So that's quite handy. In the upper console up here, you can see that we have got some interior light buttons, so one for each side. We then have the interior light for the entire car, and then we also have a button here for emergency calls. In the centre armrest, it's opened by a button on the side. You'll notice inside that you have the two USB slots. These are USB-C, so it's the very newest USB connector. We also have a power supply in there, and also there's enough space to be able to put, you know, a couple of phones and a few other bits and pieces in there. In the UK market, you will likely have these VTS transponders. This is to do with the security device on the car, the vehicle tracking system. In a nutshell, what it will mean is that when you have these fobs, or one of the fobs in the car is happy enough that everything's okay. If you drive the car without one of these fobs and you have connected or subscribed to the vehicle tracking system, then the car will think it's being stolen, and it will emit a signal to a company who Porsche Connect, and then they will in turn phone you to ask whether the car is being stolen. You'll notice that there's nowhere for you to pin this to your key, and that is in the event that if somebody were to steal your car keys. Obviously what they don't want is for the vehicle tracking fob to be stolen as well. So that is why they are shaped the way they are, because they are to be kept separate. When you leave the car, you must obviously take these with you and keep them separate to the keys. So if, like a lot of people, you have a hook in the hallway where you keep your keys, you need to keep this separate, so that if anybody were to steal your car keys, they haven't stolen the fob. They jump in the car and drive away, the car knows that it's being stolen. The headrest of the seats can be adjusted by pushing in the button on the side. It will then enable you to move the headrests in and out as you want and make an adjustment. In the rear of the Taycan, there are a couple of features that are worth pointing out. Firstly, we can move the backs of the rear seats forward by pushing this lever down, and this will enable us to have access to the rear. So if we wanted to use and load things forward, we can do, and they can be pushed back just by clicking them back into place. We also have a centre armrest which can be pulled down. There is a small catch just on the top here which you just need to pull forward. So when you pull that forward, you can pull it down, and then you have got a couple of cup holders in there as well as an armrest, which is quite handy. You do also have some central air vents in the centre there, and then on the doors you've got your window operation as well. I hope you found that video useful. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to contact me or drop me any comments in the question section. Thank you very much.